Hey, wonderful. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all so much for this great honor to be with you today. I'd like to thank Father Sinclair, the Nautical Institute, and everyone who is there today to commemorate this important anniversary of the Hungnam evacuation and to also remember and honor Captain LaRue and his crew of the SS Meredith Victory, including Mr. Burley Smith, who I understand is there. So I'd like to extend my heartfelt thanks to Mr. Smith as well. I am a Korean American writer and also a Korean War historian. I didn't start out that way, but about 12 years ago, God led me to this journey of seeking out Korean War veterans and families of fallen heroes to thank and honor them for what they have sacrificed to save the Korean people during the war. So I have become kind of a Korean War historian and an advocate for Korean War veterans and families of fallen. Just to give you a little background, my parents were teenagers during the Korean War, and they were saved thanks to the courage of so many who came to save us, including merchant marines who played such a significant role in the Korean War. And of course, by the hand of God, I believe that it was uh, the hand of God that sent these heroes to save us from communism. So I was born in South Korea after the war, and every day I thank God for the freedoms I have because of these Korean War heroes who helped save South Korea from communism. So since 2012, I've interviewed hundreds of Korean War veterans and families of fallen heroes to learn their stories. And I found that the best way that I can honor them and thank them is to make their stories known. And so I started a Facebook page that Father Sinclair referred to, where I post Korean War history and stories of veterans, real personal stories that are not found in textbooks. So I thank God ultimately for leading me to this journey of thanking American heroes who helped save us. And I think the thanks from the Korean people is long overdue to all who served in the Korean War. So I'd like to dedicate this presentation to all veterans who served in the Korean War, including Captain Leonard LaRue, Mr. Smith, and all who sacrificed so much to save South Korea. So today I'll be providing a historical overview of the Korean War and conclude with the legacy of the Korean War. So I'm going to go ahead and share now a presentation that I will go through with you. Okay, so, oops, it's on the wrong slide. So excuse me while I go back a few. All right, so there we are. So this is the 75th year of the Korean War breaking out. So it is a very significant anniversary for all who were in the Korean War and affected by the Korean War. This is my a quick introduction of my Facebook page for those of you who are interested in following my Facebook page. So what I like to do is start out with a little bit of background on what was happening in Korea before the war. So many of you may already know that Japan forcibly annexed Korea in 1910. And so this was part of the Japanese empire extending its reach all across Asia to rule all of Asia. And South Korea was fully annexed. This is a map showing the Japanese Empire in 1942, shortly after the attack on Pearl Harbor. So as you can see here in all the areas in red are all the countries that Japan had forcibly taken, including, you see here, all of Korea on the map. So all of the resources and men were taken forcibly to serve in the Japanese Empire in World War II. As you know, the Japanese surrendered to America and Allied forces in 1945. And at that time, Soviet Union was considered our ally in World War II as they helped fight against the Nazi Germans in Europe. And as you know, Russia borders North Korea on the side there, right above China. And so Soviet Union was given, well, it was agreed that the Soviet Union would go in and expel the Japanese from North Korea above the 38th parallel, and the Americans went into South Korea to expel the Japanese in south of the 38th. So that line across the 38th parallel was meant to be a temporary line to just help organize the expulsion of the Japanese and setting up of free elections. And so it was agreed between the Soviet Union and the US that free elections would be held. Well, we know that the Soviet Union cannot be trusted. And so what they did instead was they set up a communist dictator. Now, at this time, to give you a little background, the Soviets had detonated their first nuclear bomb in September 49. And in October 49, China had fallen under communist forces under Mao Zedong. So communism was very much taking a very strong, expansive stance in Asia. So at that time when China fell, Americans did not intervene to stop communist victory in China. So Stalin figured, well, maybe the Americans will not interfere if they should invade South Korea. So they set up Kim Il-sung as the communist dictator of North Korea. And there was no free elections, never had been in North Korea. And they established its first communist regime under Kim Il-sung in May 1948. Now, North Korea wanted to expand communism beyond its borders to South Korea. And so with the full support of the Soviet Union and all of their military weapons and machinery, they invaded South Korea on June 25th, 1950, which started the Korean War. At this time in South Korea, they had held free elections for the first time, and the very first elected president of South Korea was Syngman Rhee. And his desire was to actually unify North Korea and South Korea under a democratic government. So as you can see, there was a total clash of political ideology, and a clash I think was bound to happen. At this time in the United States, President Truman was the president, and he had cut the defense budget after World War II. And he had fully withdrawn American troops from Korea in 1949 after the election of Syngman Rhee. So that kind of set the stage for kind of the emboldened attack of the Soviet Union and North Korean troops of South Korea. So on June 25th, 1950, the Soviets, with the full force of the South Soviet training and artillery and tanks, crossed the 38th parallel. Now, what's incredible is that a lot of people don't know that South Korea did not even have one tank when it was invaded by North Koreans on June 25th. That's how weakened South Korea was at that time. So just within 3 days after the invasion on June 25th, North Koreans totally took over Seoul and captured it. So the UN and US response was to answer this aggression with a United Nations Security Council Resolution 83. And so they recommended that UN countries provide military assistance, with General MacArthur leading the UN Joint Command of 16 fighting countries. To give you an overview of all the countries that served in the Korean War, 16 countries sent combat forces and 5 countries sent medical units. That would be Denmark, India, Italy, Norway, and Sweden. So this was truly a world effort, a global effort here to stop this communist invasion of South Korea. And there has never been another war in which this kind of response was given to a communist invasion. I'd like to give you kind of an overview of how the front lines of the fighting changed so drastically, especially in the first 7 months of the war. So as you'll see here, there's 4 maps. The first one showing what happened when the North Korean forces, communist forces, invaded South Korea on June 25th. Just in 2 months, you can see following the arrow there, the red arrow, they took all of South Korea except for the very small perimeter of Busan. And that was the only section of South Korea left free from communists. So it is very possible that South Korea could have been totally lost to communism if not for the response of the United States and all the United Nations countries. So from September onward, the second map there is September 15. Now, that is a very historic date in Korean War history. That is the day that the Incheon landing took place. General MacArthur devised a plan where he would make an amphibious landing at Incheon, cutting off the enemy from the rear and then pushing out of the Busan perimeter. It was a wild success. And within just over a month, the US and Allied forces were able to completely push North Koreans out of South Korea. So you can see just a drastic change there between June 25th and October 20th. Now, the third map there is from I can't even see here because I'm blocking it here, from December 1950. That is when the Chinese communists entered the Korean War to assist North Korean communists. And so I'll get into some detail here about what happened in the Battle of Chosun Reservoir that pushed Chinese communist forces down, taking Seoul by January 1951. So just within another 3 months, the Chinese communist forces came pouring into North Korea and into South Korea. And then by about March of 51, in the last map there, the fighting kind of came to a stalemate across the 38th parallel. And for the next 2 years of the Korean War, much of the fighting was pretty much fixed, and there wasn't such a drastic movement of the front lines. So I thought this would give you a really good pictorial understanding of just how tumultuous it was during the first 7 months of the war. And I may come back to this map a couple of times later on. So when I talked about the Busan perimeter in the first map there, where there was only a small perimeter left around Busan Harbor, where South Korea was free, this is what the US forces were looking at. A very small perimeter, fighting to keep that perimeter free of the communists. And they absolutely could have been pushed to the ocean. If not for the arrival of the 24th Infantry, the 25th Infantry, and the 1st Cavalry Division from Japan, while other U.S. military units were being deployed from stateside. So the very first units that arrived in Korean War were deployed from Japan. And the Merchant Marine ships were very much a part of bringing these troops over in the first weeks of the war. So I want to give special shout out and a recognition of our merchant marine ships and the mariners who helped bring the first troops into Korea to defend South Korea. So this was the plan for the Incheon landing, as I spoke to a little bit earlier. General MacArthur devised this plan to land U.S. Marines and 8th Army's 7th Infantry Division at Incheon to cut off the enemy from the rear, cutting off their supply lines, while the troops at Busan pushed out from the perimeter and essentially trapping them and pushing them out of South Korea. So this was some of the effort here of the Incheon landing. The Merchant Marines were also involved in this. 75,000 troops, 261 naval vessels, including merchant marine ships, were part of this invasion. And it was a magnificent success. And if you talk to any Korean, they will tell you that the great American victory of the Korean War was the Incheon landing. It was incredible. Just how successful it was in pushing out the communists out of South Korea. So this is some of the scenes for the Marines that were landing on landing crafts here, coming on shore at Incheon. And this is actually a picture of a Medal of Honor recipient, Valdemar Lopez. He would die just a few minutes later as he fell on a grenade that had dropped in front of him to save his fellow Marines. This is the battle for Seoul. So after they took Incheon, the next target was to recapture Seoul and to take the communists out of Seoul. What's interesting about this picture, I always thought when I first saw this picture that this was North Korea because you see on the wall there, Stalin and Kim Il-sung. And Lenin, I think, is in the middle. All the communist dictators. And you think this is North Korea. No, this was South Korea. This was Seoul. When the North Korean communists came down, they erected these portraits on a building in Seoul when they took it over. So this very much is a reality of what could have happened to South Korea if not for the Americans and UN forces that came to defend it against communism. So I think this is a very powerful picture for Koreans to remember that we could have been lost to communism. I like to also think that maybe the Marines use it as a target practice. I don't know. Okay, so here's the battle for Seoul. And actually, Seoul exchanged hands 4 times during the first 9 months of the war. So, for people living in Seoul, it was very tumultuous. First, the North Koreans took it, then the Americans liberated it. Third time, the Chinese took it in March, in January, and then in March, Americans took it back. So, it was very tumultuous, and a great fight was made to save Seoul. And ultimately, the Americans did. So this is a retaking of Seoul in September 28, 1950. This is actually a Marine raising the American flag on top of the U.S. Embassy building in Seoul. So by early October, it was decided between President Truman and General MacArthur that they would actually go into North Korea in hopes of liberating North Korea from communism. So that was their hope that they can eradicate communism from North Korea. Well, the Chinese had a different idea. In late September, they warned the United States that if the United States crossed the 38th parallel into North Korea, that they would get involved, and they did. So at the very first battle that the Chinese came into, which overwhelmed American forces, was actually at the Battle of Unsan, which I don't have here on this text, but they were at the Battle of Unsan, and that was the first test of the Chinese testing UN forces and their fighting capability. The next big epic battle that we all know about is the Battle of Chosin Reservoir. This is on the eastern coast, up in the mountains of North Korea. Now, at this time, in November to December of 1950, this was one of the most historically cold, frigid weather that North Korea has ever had in its history. And unfortunately for the U.S. 1st Marine Division and the 7th Infantry Division of the U.S. Army, they were up there fighting not only the overwhelming forces of the Chinese communists, but also this incredibly unforgiving freezing weather. So the Americans were, I think, outnumbered. A lot of figures are different here. They say 10-1, 6-1, but clearly the Chinese outnumber the U.S. and UN forces. In terms of the U.S. and UN forces that were up at the Chosin, it was the 1st Marine Division, the U.S. Army's 7th Infantry Division, the 3rd Division was at Hungnam, and also the 65th Infantry Regiment with the Puerto Ricans were attached to the British Royal Commandos, the 4-1 Commandos. So the British, the Puerto Ricans, and the U.S. Were all up there in their fight against the Chinese. So this is a pictorial map of the Chosin Reservoir. And all the red, squares and the arrows are the Chinese attacking American units and the British Royal Commandos. And this is definitely one of the most historic and epic fights. For sure, the U.S. Forces should have been completely annihilated, but they were not. Even though they were completely overwhelmed by the Chinese and surrounded, fighting these freezing conditions, they managed to fight their way out of the Chosin Reservoir. The circle in purple there is a treadway bridge that was dropped at Fushilin Pass. So to add to the drama of what's already a horrific battle, when they were trying to break out of the Chosin, the Chinese had bombed out this pass, which is circled in purple. There's a bridge that you have to cross to get out of the Chosin Reservoir. Well, they blew it out. So the U.S. Army devised a plan with the U.S. Air Force to drop a treadway bridge. And they were successful in building that bridge in just a matter of few days, giving passage out of the Chosin Reservoir, allowing the Marines and the Army soldiers to break out. So it was quite the very dramatic battle with so many just things against them that have come up. So many challenges came up for them. I have interviewed many Korean War veterans who fought at the Chosin Reservoir, and it is truly a miracle that anyone could have survived what they did. So I have the utmost respect and gratitude for all who fought, especially in this Battle of Chosin. The map on the right, if you can see there, shows the map of Korea. And I don't know if you can see it, but on the upper right part of the Korean Peninsula is where the Hungnam and Chosin Reservoir is. So I am now getting to, I know what is the focus of your seminar today. So this is a couple more pictures of Chosin Reservoir. Now, when the Marines and the soldiers came out, actually they were being followed out by North Korean refugees who wanted to flee communism. So at Hungnam Harbor, this was the scene of over 90,000 North Korean refugees gathered there in hopes of being evacuated out of North Korea. Now, I've done some reading on this, and I've understand that there were most of the North Korean refugees here were Christian. They wanted to flee communism. They were against communism because of their Christian beliefs, and they were hoping for a rescue from the US military to take them out of North Korea. And as they saw the Marines and the soldiers retreating from the communists, they knew that this would be their only and perhaps their last opportunity to get out of North Korea with the US military. At this time, even at the Hungnam port, it was freezing conditions, and the Chinese communists were still closing in on them. So it wasn't like they were free of the danger of the Chinese Communist forces that encircled them at Chosin. They were now closing in on Hungnam. So at this time, while the refugees were gathered, the Navy corsairs were attacking enemy positions to provide safety for the evacuation of the troops. So there was a lot of drama going on beyond just people waiting here. There was a war in their background, and they're trying to flee the grips of communism. So ultimately, 193 Navy and Merchant Marine ships transported 105,000 UN troops and rescued 91,000 North Korean refugees. That's a staggering number. The level of organization and ingenuity that they must have had to do this is really a remarkable achievement. 350,000 metric tons. I don't even know what that means, but that's what I found there. 350,000 metric tons of cargo from Hungnam was transported to Busan as well. So you can see kind of the scene here. One interesting story I'd like to share is a veteran that I had interviewed, Mr. Jim Denny. He was with the 1st Marine Division. He had fought this horrific battle at Chosin Reservoir. He told me when he got to the port that he was assigned to loading refugees on the ships. And the good thing, ironically, was that he spoke Japanese. He had been stationed in Japan, and so did North Koreans know Japan because Japan had occupied Korea. Well, ironically, that commonality of Japanese language helped him to figure out which were family members that he should not separate when he put them on the ship. So he would ask, mama-san, papa-san, children, and he would put them together. And so it wasn't easy just to load people on. You didn't want to separate them. So that was really kind of a very thoughtful and careful consideration by Mr. Denny. And it is just really incredible, the heart and the compassion that the Americans had for these refugees. So these are some of the pictures of the Hungnam evacuation. And you can imagine their desperation. They didn't have very much with them, but you knew that what they so desperately wanted was to flee communism. That is so very clear to me. I didn't mention this, but my father's family also fled North Korea. Luckily, though, for my father's family, they fled North Korea several months before the war. But the same desperation of wanting to get away from the evils of communism is very clear, especially among those who escaped North Korea. They know what they had been saved from by these Americans who came to fight for them and save them. So these are some of the ships. Some of them even look like fishing boats, not even really Navy or merchant marine ships. I'm sure a lot of Japanese fishing boats were also used, or even North Korean ones. So I'm going to get to Meredith Victory. I hope I'm not going too fast, but in the interest of time, I'm giving you a very quick high-level view of Korean War history, so I hope that's okay. So this is the merchant marine ship, the SS Meredith Victory. And the Military Sea Transport Service requested that the Maritime Commission activate reserve ships to support sea lift operations in Korea. And so in July of 1950, Meredith Victory was reactivated and assigned for military cargo for the Korean War. This is our Honorable Captain Leonard LaRue. He was the Merchant Marine skipper of the SS Meredith Victory. And I want to kind of give you a timeline so that you can kind of understand how quickly things happened here as he ultimately evacuated 14,000 North Koreans. So it was just on December 20th that he arrived at Port of Hungnam. So he had been, I think, transporting with the SS Meredith Victory, I believe, a lot of oil back and forth from South Korea to North Korea to support aircrafts flying in battles. And so they had just come back to North Korea on December 20th when he said, okay, now let me see if I can see this here. As far as my glasses could sweep, he wrote, the dock area was dark with masses of humanity, and behind them were communist Chinese who wanted to enslave them, and before them was the vast open sea. So, he's describing the scene of these North Korean refugees being stuck between the Chinese advancing towards them and the sea in front of them, and no one to rescue them. And so it was decided, and he was asked, I believe, by the US military if he would evacuate North Korean refugees. And between December 22nd and 23rd, they started loading refugees, standing room only, shoulder to shoulder, 14,000 passengers on a ship that was only designed for, I believe, 30 or 40 crew members. How they did that is really an incredible feat. And so Captain LaRue navigated the heavily mined waters of North Korea. At this time, a lot of US minesweepers were even blown up by the mines that the North Koreans had put into the water. So it was very dangerous waters, and of course, icy and cold weather conditions, probably very windy. And so, with this very heavy laden ship across mined waters is truly an impossibility. And out of the 14,000 passengers, I found that 4,000 were infants and children. Can you imagine 4,000 infants and children? Now, there were so many children and old people because the younger ones had been taken to fight in the war. So most of the passengers here were elderly and children. So it was a 2 day, I believe a 2 day voyage or 28-hour voyage down to Busan. And when they arrived in Busan, they were told there was no room. There were just too many troops and refugees. And so they were diverted to a small island called Gojedo. And so on Christmas Day, 14,000 plus 5 babies, kimchi 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, were all safely taken to Gojedo. And this is the Christmas miracle of 1950. Truly, I think he is quoted as having said that God's hand was at the helm of my ship. And so they arrived on Christmas Day, 1950, at Koji Island, and no one was injured. And so this was quite the move of God in using Captain Leonard LaRue to save such a staggering number of refugees from North Korea from communism. Truly remarkable. So one thing I want to show here is that when they departed Hungnam Harbor, the Americans blew everything up so that the North Korean and the Chinese communists have nothing to use. And so they exited in grand fashion, like a movie, and blew everything up. And actually, Mr. Denny, the veteran who told me that he loaded refugees onto the ships, he also helped wire these dynamites or dynamites to blow up the factories there. So it is quite the scene of what happened with this Hungnam evacuation. Oh, okay. I guess I got ahead of myself. So this is talking about just how crowded it was. And even in this crowded conditions, 5 babies were born and the crew named them Kimchi 1 through 5. I'm sure Mr. Burley Smith can speak to this a lot better than I can. So I want to show you really quickly here just the voyage of the SS Meredith Victory. So where you see the red line up at the top is Hungnam, and their voyage took them down to Busan, and then they were turned away. So they went further down a little bit west southwest to Goje Island. So it took a voyage about 28 hours, I believe, or 2 days. And Mr. Smith can speak to that much better than I can again. So once they got to Gojedo, there was no dock or pier, so the Navy had to provide LSTs to get the refugees onto the island. So this is truly a move of God in using somebody like Captain Leonard LaRue and so many merchant marine ships and U.S. Navy to save 90,000 North Korean people who wanted to flee communism. It is truly a testament to American courage and compassion. I want to go back to finishing up the Korean War overview. So, for the next 2 years of the war, from 51 to 53, the fighting was fixed pretty much along the 38th parallel. And neither side gained much ground. And there was just a lot of large scale bombing of North Korea. And what started the the armistice negotiations started in 51, believe it or not, but it dragged on for 2 years. And then what was decided was after Stalin died, I think the Chinese and the Russians decided they weren't interested in continuing to fight anymore. So the death of Stalin was a key milestone for what brought the Korean War to an end. Now, so in April, there was a switch of prisoners of wars that were sick, and then August to December, a lot more POWs were exchanged by both sides. So this is a picture of the armistice agreement being signed on July 27th. And one thing I'd like to really point out is that armistice is not a peace treaty. So when you hear that the Korean War has never ended, that is correct. It is technically not over. The Korean War is still on. The armistice, all that was saying is we're going to stop firing. That's all they agreed to. It was not a peace treaty. So because of that, the Korean War is a war that is technically not over. So, what was the argument about, and why did the armistice negotiation take 2 years? Well, the points of disagreement was that the North Koreans wanted the line drawn at the original 38th parallel. And of course, the US didn't want that because we had gained some ground. And also, the North Koreans wanted all of their soldiers, all of theirs back, without giving opportunity for each of theirs to decide whether they want to stay in South Korea or go back to North Korea. And a lot of these soldiers in the North Korean army were forcibly put there, conscripted for the war. So many of them chose to stay in South Korea. So anyway, it was agreed that everyone would choose where they would want to go. And so the armistice was agreed on July 27th. The outcome of the war is that over 36,000 Americans were killed and 8,000 became missing. This is a tremendous sacrifice for a 3-year war. And this is something that we Koreans should never forget, especially the price of our freedom. And I have met over the years hundreds of families whose loved ones are still missing in action, MIA, in North Korea. And they are still fighting that war every day as they wonder where their loved ones are. So I know and I've come to understand and appreciate the depth of American sacrifice for Korea. So I just wanted to take a moment here to acknowledge that 8,000 families. Now it's the number is down to 7,400 now. We have found and identified some 700 Americans since the war, but still the number is still at about 7,400 missing in action. So those families continue to hope for the return of the remains of their loved one from North Korea. I guess the greatest outcome is that we Koreans, including myself, are here today because of the hand of God and because of the courage of Americans and all of the UN countries that answered this invasion of the communists. And so South Korea has become a great testament to sacrifices made and fight against communism. What I'd like to also touch on a little bit here is the contributions of the Merchant Marine in the Korean War. So, as I mentioned before, the Merchant Marine ships were one of the first ships to bring troops from Japan into the Korean War, and also for the Incheon landing and Battle of Chosun. And of course, I spoke here at length about the evacuation from Hungnam that the Merchant Marine ships took part in, especially the Meredith Victory. And for the entire duration of the war, the Merchant Marines transported some 75% of military personnel and 90% of all supplies, mail, food, ammunition, everything that you would need in a war zone. So that is a significant contribution of the Merchant Marine. I didn't know this, but I found out that 20 mariners lost their lives in the line of duty. So I'll do some more research on that and hope to honor their memory. So I believe that mariners are among the most forgotten and unsung heroes of the Korean War, but not only Korean War, but in World War II, Vietnam, all the wars that they have supported. So I so appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of veterans of Merchant Marines today because it's given me a deeper appreciation of the role that mariners have played in every war. Because of this opportunity, I had to do some research. So I just want to take a moment to thank all the veterans who have served in the Merchant Marines. You are all heroes. I want to also talk about what happened with Captain LaRue after the war. Um, he was given South Korean honor of the Gold Star Uji Military Merit in 1958. And then by the United States in 1960, he was awarded, and all the crew, the Merchant Marine Meritorious Service Medal. And the SS Meredith Victory was conferred the title of Gallant Ship by Congress that was signed by President Eisenhower. And the other thing that's also very significant is the Guinness World Records has described, I think, the SS Meredith as the largest evacuation from land by a single ship. So it is quite an incredible achievement. What is also amazing is that Captain LaRue went into the Order of the Benedictines at St. Paul's Abbey in Newton, New Jersey. And he served there humbly, serving God until 2001. And I believe he's buried there as well, is from what I found out. So he went from Captain LaRue to Brother Marinus. And what an incredible man he was. A true servant of God in every way. I want to show you a picture of a memorial in South Korea. Koji Island is where all the refugees were brought to. And so they built this memorial there, showing the scene of the refugees climbing down or climbing up. I'm not sure if that's accurate, if they went on the ropes or not, but that's for Mr. Smith to clarify. But anyway, this is the memorial. Today, the DMZ is highly fortified and mined and separates North and South Korea, and it stretches across the entire Korean peninsula. And so you see there US and South Korean Republic of Korea soldiers on the bottom there, and then on the upper part of the picture is the North Korean communists. I've been there many times. It is a very eerie feeling to know that that line separates such an evil regime, and South Korea, in contrast, is so prosperous. This is always such a powerful image to show. This is Korea from space, looking down. And look what you see there in North Korea, nothing but darkness, except a little bit of light at Pyongyang. And then South Korea is so vibrant with all the lights. I really believe it's a depiction of the difference between evil and good, darkness and light, communism and democracy. And truly, South Korea has been blessed by the sacrifice of so many who saved us and gave us this outcome of such a prosperous and free nation. I wanted to give you, as a conclusion, the outcome of the war. Many times when I meet veterans and families of fallen, they may not necessarily think about the outcome of the war. All they know is what they have experienced. Well, this is South Korea of what they experienced during the war, just total devastation, poverty. And this is South Korea today. It is truly a miracle. There's also another miracle term that's thrown around in reference to Korean War, and that's miracle on the Han River. Do you see there? That's a river there. That's the Han River. During the Korean War, there was only one bridge, and it was bombed out. Today, I believe there's some 27 bridges across the Han River. This is how it looks today. There's not even a space for an ant. I mean, everything is built up. During the war, there was nothing there, nothing but dirt. And in Korean War, during the Korean War, Korea didn't even have cars. Your normal citizen didn't even have cars. They had carts, with wheels if they pushed. Nothing mechanized. And look at South Korea today. They build automobiles, appliances, electronics. It is just unheard of. And I think no one ever dreamt that South Korea would rise to the level of prosperity it has. And it is all owed to God's grace and also to the courage and service of so many who came to save South Korea. So it is now the fourth largest economy in Asia, 12th largest economy in the world, and 48 million Koreans live in freedom today. So I wanted to end that with just my heartfelt thanks to all veterans of every war, not just Korean War, who have ever fought for the values of freedom. And I wanted you to know that there is a people that is grateful for you, that have been saved by your sacrifice and appreciative of what you have fought for. And so, on behalf of the Korean people, I'd like to extend my heartfelt thanks to Mr. Smith, all the Merchant Marine veterans who served in the Korean War. I don't know if any are in the room, but certainly the Merchant Marine veterans who are in the room, you all have so much to be proud of. Your legacy of those that came before you that served in the Korean War and other wars to save a country from communist tyranny. So with that, I will conclude. I think I'm a little bit over, but I think I may have time for question and answers. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today.
She has to hear you right here.
And so they'll give a question and then Doreen will repeat it in the microphone. So do we have a question?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear very well. There's a lot of echoing in the room.
So he's going to ask a question with the microphone, and then I'll repeat the question to you.
Great, thank you so much.
Okay.
So
Burley has a question.
His mother is a Baptist, father was an American soldier, and she's the senior rabbi at the Central Synagogue in New York. I'm just wondering if this whole wonderful presentation that you've just given us would be available for someone like that to show to their own constituents. Is this possible?
Yes, so Mr. Burley Smith has a question for you. He's recently met the rabbi of a very large temple in New York, and he was wondering if it would be possible, she's of Korean descent as well, would it be possible to get your presentation for them to be able to show to their people?
Certainly, please put me in contact with her, and if there's anything I can do to help present this information, I would be happy to do that. Mr. Smith, I just want to thank you. I can't see your face, but I have seen you at various ceremonies in Korea. I've known about you. I believe you also know Ned Forney. Ned is also a friend of mine. So I just want to thank you with all my heart. You are a true hero. And the fact that you're with us today is a tremendous honor and a blessing. For us to even have someone who was a crew member of Meredith Victory is truly something I'm grateful for. I hope you stay healthy, Mr. Smith, many, many years with us.
He will be 97 next month.
Oh my goodness. God bless Mr. Smith. That's wonderful.
And it's wonderful. Great stuff.
but I'm wondering if you've worked with Korean Americans who have, since the war, immigrated to the United States, and have they relayed to you their civilian stories, running away from communist tyranny?
So Dr. Josh Smith is at with the Merchant Marine Museum is asking the question. He's followed your Facebook page extensively. And the question again, Dr. Smith? Okay, and he's wondering if you followed the civilian story of those Koreans who immigrated here to the United States.
My focus has been on really seeking out Korean War veterans to learn their stories, to thank them, and to honor them in every way I can. But in the course of my journey for the last 13 years, I have met many Koreans who have shared their Korean War experiences with me. I'll share my father's real quick, if I have a few minutes. My father's family comes from Pyongyang, North Korea. My dad's father and his father before him were wealthy landowners. And when the communists took over in 48, the first thing they did was to confiscate and steal private property. And so it became government property. And so they lost everything overnight. And then what really did it for my grandfather was he started seeing North Korean soldiers burning down churches while people were inside praying. And this is how North Korean communists eradicated communism from North Korea. What a lot of people don't know was that Christianity was much more fervent and widespread in North Korea than South Korea before the war. And so, firsthand, my father's family and my grandfather witnessed the evils of communism. And so that is why they fled in 1949. And my father came down, he was about 17 at the time. He joined the South Korean army and he was made a Katusa, Korean augmentation to the US Army, attached to the US Army's 3rd Infantry Division. And my father fought in the Korean War against communism in hopes of liberating North Korea from the evils of communism. And of course, that was not to be. But without Americans and without all the countries that came to fight for us, there's no way that South Korea would be free today or it would exist as a country. And so we, as a family who understand the evils of communism, understand what we have been saved from and also what we have been given and the preciousness of the freedoms we have been given. So I think it is so important for Koreans to tell their stories. So I agree with you, Josh, that Koreans need to tell their stories, and we need to be the ones to be the loudest in thanking America and all who came to fight for us. Because if we don't do that, who should? Nobody else should. That is our responsibility and the right thing to do. And so I hope to do a little bit of that. And this is really was God's idea in taking me out of my corporate career to do this work of seeking out veterans and to honor them and to thank them. So it is long overdue. And I also feel that I started too late. Maybe I should have left the corporate world a little sooner. But I am so grateful for every opportunity that God has brought to me, including this very important seminar today. And I so thank all of you, Father Sinclair and the Nautical Institute, and Doreen, for all of your help to invite me to speak today. I so appreciate the opportunity to express my loving gratitude to our veterans and to America.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate you today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. God bless you all. Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.